Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I'm your host, Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to be reviewing the newest TV series based off the Child's Play horror comedy franchise, Chucky. And that episode I'm going to be reviewing is Death by Misadventure. Death by Misadventure and the Chucky series are brought to us by Don Mancini, the original writer for the original Child's Play movies and a couple of others, Bride of Chucky, and I believe it was also Seed of Chucky. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong on that, please correct me in the comments below. But it takes place in Hackensack, New Jersey, where we get a little monologue from a character by the name of Evan. He is a middle school student giving his podcast on the hack and slash murders committed by Charles Lee Ray. And for those of you who are familiar with the name of that character, well, that character is Chucky himself, once again, voiced by Brad Dourif. And we also meet this character by the name of Jake Wheeler, who is an aspiring artist, and he buys different dolls and digs different dolls out of trash cans for his art projects. We also meet his cousin Junior and also Lexi, Junior's girlfriend. They are all middle school students who, in one way or another, are either friends or frenemies. But as far as Jake is concerned, he is an outcast because he spends most of his time working on his sculptures. He doesn't really spend too much quality time outside with his friends, and his father disapproves of his art projects. His father doesn't feel that spending money to put Jake into school, which would be $1,000, into an art school, is worth the time. So Jake ends up taking Chucky, which he bought at a yard sale, to school. And a few of the kids, they mock him. It's middle school, it's the typical middle school. You got bullies, you have people who will be on your side, but most people in this middle school end up mocking Jake for the fact that he's bringing Chucky into middle school. There's a scene taking place in science class where they're doing a biology lesson and they're dissecting a frog, and that's where we get our first real glimpse of Chucky being Chucky. Now, I will admit there are some hints here and there in the episode that Chucky we all know and love is basically alive and well inside that good guy doll, to where we see his eyes move, his hands move, and also as far as Jake's cat is concerned, yes, Jake has a cat, and the fate for that cat doesn't bode well. So going back to the biology assignment in the science class where they're dissecting the frog, they each have a scalpel where they're getting ready to dissect the frog and check out its innards and check out its heart, organs, lungs, things of that nature. And we see a glimpse of Chucky smiling, and next we see, as the camera cuts away, Chucky takes the scalpel and he completely opens up the frog, where you see the heart and the lungs. And of course, Lexi, prior to this moment, because Jake's father doesn't have a lot of money and it's just him and Jake due to his mother's passing, she mocks Jake by setting up a GoFundMe page. And of course, Lexi is reprimanded by the teacher signed up for detention. Lexi, being the spoiled rich girl, threatens to sue the school, says that her parents can sue the school as well. Of course, the teacher, Miss F, doesn't really take her threat too seriously, even when she goes to get the principal. There's a scene where after Miss F leaves the classroom to go get the principal to let Lexi tell the principal what Lexi told Miss F about suing the school. Well, Chucky makes his presence known. He blocks the door and freaks out Lexi. There's also a scene where they're at a talent show later that night, and various kids are showing off their talent. Evan is playing the piano, and of course the parents are there, siblings are there. At one point, Chucky is sitting in the seat. He starts speaking up and says to Lexi, why don't you pick on someone your own size? And then Jake ends up picking up Chucky after Chucky tells him to, goes up on stage where Lexi is speaking in front of a microphone. And of course, Lexi is also being obnoxious. So what ends up happening is Jake stands in front of the microphone as if he's a ventriloquist with a puppet. Chucky starts speaking and he whips out Lexi's phone, the phone that she ended up dropping while she was inside the classroom when Chucky first makes his presence known that he is indeed alive and well. And Chucky starts going through the phone, pointing out different people, even pointing out Jake's aunt, and talking about her, talking about things that Lexi's looking up. And then it leads to us seeing Jake back at home after the talent show. His dad's there. He's drunk, still disapproving of the fact that Jake has Chucky. He even told Jake to get rid of Chucky, which at one point before this scene, Jake had thrown Chucky into a trash can, but of course that then led up to the talent show where we do end up seeing Chucky there. It's Chucky. You don't throw him into a trash can. You don't push him in a closet. He'll pop up. Then what ends up happening is when Jake's father is sitting in the living room getting drunk, the power starts to fluctuate, which causes Jake's father to go down to the basement. And while he's down in the basement, guess who's there? Yep, that's right. Chucky's there, and Chucky is looking at Jake's father when Jake's father walks over to the circuit breaker to flip a few switches to get the power on. Of course, the power does come back on. Chucky's giving him this evil grin, and Jake's father is barefoot, so what ends up happening is Chucky ends up vomiting while Jake's father has his hand on a few switches of the surge protector. I should say surge protector, but circuit breaker. Sorry about that. And ends up electrocuting Jake's father. Jake's father is killed, and Jake ends up being interrogated by a few detectives as far as what happened. They even mentioned the talent show earlier that night, saying that he was very talented to be able to voice Chucky. At the same time, he was sitting in front of him. But it leads to Jake's father, brother, his uncle, who was played by the same actor. Because they're twins, well, he ends up going with him to their home, and there you see Junior, you see his aunt. They're talking to him, saying everything's going to be okay. This is your home now. So they give Jake a room, and one of the scenes that you see after his aunt has shown him around his room and also told him about the Wi-Fi password is a scene where you see Junior standing in the doorway of his room, and Jake's closing the door to the room that is now his while he's holding Chucky. And just the look that Junior's giving back to Jake, and the last thing you see is Chucky staring back at Junior. And then there's a conversation between Jake and Chucky. Chucky, tries to convince Jake that he's a killer. He says that we killed your father, even though Jake's denying it. Chucky says, come on, everybody's a killer. You know that. I definitely know that. And they bring up Lexi's name, so she's the next one on the list. And that's where the episode cuts out, with Chucky standing in the middle of the screen in the bedroom. There's a window, there's a flash of lightning and thunder, and we have to wait till next week. Now, what did I think of this series? Well, I wasn't expecting much to begin with, to be honest with you. I figured, we've got a series based on the Child's Play movie. And if you've ever watched the original Child's Play, I'm not talking about the remake from 2019, but if you ever watched the original, you know that Charles Lee Ray was a serial killer, serial murderer, and he committed several crimes during his day. Then he is executed, and while he's executed, his essence is transferred into that of a doll when he was trying to commit a satanic ritual. And well, it picks up from that, and Don Mancini, like I said, is one of the original writers from the movie, so this series is created and produced by him. So you do see a lot of familiar tropes when it comes to horror movies or even horror-based TV shows. I mean, one of the things I want to go back to is the fact that when we have Jake's father down in the basement and he's at the circuit breaker trying to get the lights to come on, I knew right away that he was going to be electrocuted. It was just right there for the open. But, with a series like this, you just watch, you get your giggles, and it's it's going to be over the top type of, horror, over the top type of comedy, because there are some funny bits in there with the show, but overall, you get what you get with the show, and that's a show that's not taking itself too seriously, but it does, have some callbacks to the original Child's Play movie. You see a newspaper article with Andy as Jake's looking on his laptop to look up the Hackensack murders. And there's also a scene where Jake's on the phone with somebody, but we're not told who that is. All we're told is that this call's coming from Rhode Island, and it leaves it at that after the call's disconnected. So could it be Andy himself trying to warn Jake about Chucky? Possibly, because one of the things he does say to Jake in this episode is to check the back of Chucky to see if there are any batteries in him. And of course, there aren't any batteries in him, so that's one of your oh crap moments. So all in all, if I were to rate this first episode, considering what it is, yeah, it's cheesy, it's horror, and it's a Child's Play TV series for 2021. And honestly, I would say if you like the Child's Play movies, go watch it. If you don't like the Child's Play movies, you're not missing out on anything. Will I watch episode 2? Probably. Because honestly, I'm not taking this series seriously. I'm not saying it's great, because it's not. It's predictable. But it's also one of those things where you're looking at it and you can't look away. Honestly, you can't. So if I were going to rate this series, 1 through 5, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars because, the acting, it's okay. It's not the greatest acting. There are a lot of things that are very predictable in this series. But, if you go in knowing that ahead of time, I think you'll be able to watch it just fine. But as far as the first episode is concerned, 2.5 out of 5. I will watch next week's episode. I don't know if this will be a continuing series here on the channel, but for now, I'm going to do what I've done before, which is watch the first 3 episodes, and then after the 3rd episode, I will decide and let you all know whether or not I'm going to continue with this series. So if you like the Child's Play movies, any of them, whether it's the first one or the most recent one with Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky, and let me just come out and say it, Brad Dourif is the only voice of Chucky we ever need. There are certain people who provide the voices for certain characters, and Brad Dourif is the definitive Chucky. I've heard some of Mark Hamill's Chucky, and you can't really compare. Brad Dourif is Chucky. He will always be Chucky, and he's still got it. He's still got it. So, that is one of the reasons why I'm going to continue to watch, is just to hear him as Chucky. I'll admit, it's nostalgia for me. And, as far as the Child Play movies, they were, those movies that you could sit back and watch even when I was 10 years old, and you didn't take it seriously. It was more like a comedy horror, just the way it was. It was, like those old, horror films of the 60s, before we got Halloween, and of course Nightmare on Elm Street, and also Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, those. So all in all, 2.5 out of 5 stars for me, but one reason to keep watching is Brad Dourif, and also, still gonna have 2 more episodes to watch before I give it my final. Will I continue, or will I say, all right, I'm done? But, if you like horror movies, if you like horror slasher movies, even horror comedy, I think you'll like this. So, this has been Mike for Pacific414 episode review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. And if you like this video enough, or any of the content on this channel, subscribe to the Pacific414 YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Until next time.